The last 10 days of Ramadan are almost upon us. The question is, how many of us have witnessed the month of Ramadan on countless occasions? The answer is many. Some of us have witnessed the month of Ramadan more than 30 times, more than 40 times, more than 60 times. The second question is, how many of us have witnessed the last 10 days of the month of Ramadan on countless occasions? The answer to this again is many. The third and most important question is, how many of us can claim that we have made the most of all the Ramadans that we have witnessed? In fact, how many of us can claim that we have made the most of even one Ramadan? The answer to this is none of us can truly claim that we have done the best even when it comes to one Ramadan. Why is that? It's because acceptance is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence you may find a person who outwardly, apparently strives the whole month. They are always in the masjid, fasting, giving charity, etc. However, due to some lack that they have, due to some issue that they have, it could be anything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't accept from them. Why did we start like this? Because this shows us that any opportunity you get in the future, even if you've witnessed Ramadan 60 times before, you've got to make the most of it. So yes, a person may claim, I've fasted for 40 years or 50 years, but nobody can claim that I've done it in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased 100%. Hence, any opportunity you get, and this is an opportunity, and the last 10 days that are coming is an opportunity, use it and make the most of it as though it is your last opportunity and as though you are a servant of Allah who has achieved absolutely nothing. This will encourage you and help you to strive to attain the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, when we look at the month of Ramadan as well as other seasons of goodness, when it comes to Hajj, when it comes to fasting in Ashura, etc., we could summarize the reason behind these seasons. We could say it's for two reasons. The first is to attain the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the second is to gather as many good deeds as possible so that our ranks are raised in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world and in the next. When it comes to the month of Ramadan, and when it comes to the first point, which is forgiveness, we find that there are three powerful ahadith specifically about the month of Ramadan. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, "Man sama Ramadana imanan wa ihtisaba, ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbih." Whoever fasts the month of Ramadan, and then he mentions two conditions. He doesn't say whoever fasts the month of Ramadan, then his sins are forgiven. He says no, whoever fasts the month of Ramadan and two conditions are fulfilled. What are these conditions? The first is imanan. Imanan means to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to know that you are doing it solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You find that some people, when they fast because their friends are fasting, or they fast because they know that there's a month of Ramadan and everybody generally fasts, so let me fast. Again, that is something that is not complete. That is an intention that is not complete, because somebody is now doing it out of habit. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, imanan, which a person has full belief. He has sincerity. He knows that he's doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second is wahtisaba, and he knows, he's hoping in the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward him. And if you look at this word, ihtisaba, you would realize that when a person actually fasts with this condition in place, it brings him closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It helps him to know who his creator is. Because imagine if you just had to fast. Some people do it solely for health benefits. Again, that's wrong. You do it with the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and knowing that Allah will reward you. When you know that Allah will reward you, you are acknowledging that you are a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are acknowledging that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control. You are acknowledging that there is a day of judgment wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward people for doing good. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, the person who fasts, fulfilling these conditions, غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. His previous sins are forgiven. A second powerful hadith, again related to Ramadan. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, مَنْ قَامَ رَمَضَانَ إِيمَانًا وَاحْتِسَابًا غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. Whoever stands in prayer in the month of Ramadan, firstly, again, with Iman, the first condition, he knows, he believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not coming, for example, to the masjid just to meet people or just to pass time. No, he's doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاحْتِسَابًا, hoping in the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. His previous sins are forgiven. An important point to mention when it comes to what we call Qiyamul Layl or Salatul Taraweeh. People are of different levels. You find those who don't perform Salah at all. It's there. For them, the most important thing is to get what is compulsory in order, and that is performing 5 times Salah a day. Yes, if a person doesn't perform any Salah at all, and in the month of Ramadan he's coming for Isha, it's a good step in the right direction. However, the 5 salawat are compulsory. Then when it comes to Taraweeh or Qiyamul Layl, we find those who do not come to the masjid or are unable to come to the masjid. For them, if their habit was such that they don't perform Taraweeh at all and they think, for example, 20 is too much, start with even 2 units of prayer. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's Qiyamul Layl. It's something which is voluntary but highly encouraged. So, if a person thinks 20 is too much and he's at home and he says, instead of leaving 20 altogether, at least start with 2. Then you find there are those who are on a higher level. MashaAllah, they perform all their salawat and they coming to the masjid. Whether you are reading in a masjid that performs 20 raka'at, more than 20 raka'at, 8 raka'at, less than 8 raka'at, you in the masjid, you following the imam, inshallah, your reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, when it comes to these units of prayer, we're not talking about what's permissible and not permissible. Everything is permissible, inshallah, as what we've mentioned previously. However, if you are a person who used to read with the imam 20 units of prayer, and then all of a sudden you find yourself now this year leaving after 4, leaving after 8, leaving after 12, then take account of yourself and be honest. Say that my caliber or my level was here at one stage and now I've decreased. It's like when you have a shop and you say your profits are, for example, at 100,000 and now they've gone down to 20,000. There's something wrong. There's a problem there. So if your imam, for example, is performing 20 raka'at, it is the sunnah to follow your imam for the full 20. That's why the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, speaking about the reward of the person who performs the salah, he mentions the one who remains with his imam until he finishes. And this hadith is not saying that after they change, when it comes to 4 raka'at, let's say another imam comes, then you leave after 4. No, it's not speaking about that. It's speaking about generally what the practice of the people was, where one person would lead. So it's important to remember this. We've spoken about performing the night prayer for those who don't perform salawat at all, and we're speaking about those who perform salah. Make sure and be honest with yourself. Make sure you are not somebody who is lacking. Let's say a person feels that I haven't made the most of Ramadan, nor have I made the most of this qiyam during these first 20 days. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in a third hadith, من قام ليلة القدر إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever stands in prayer on the night of Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr, as we know, is better than 1,000 months. Better means more than 1,000 months. It could be 2,000, 10,000, 1 million. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just said better, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His virtue is vast. He rewards however He pleases. So the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam is again encouraging us. It's as though he is saying that even if you've missed out on the first part, your fasting is not all up to standard, and your normal qiyam during the first so many days is not up to standard. There's a night that's coming. Make the most of it, because this night is better than 1,000 months. And it could be, as we've mentioned before, any of the last 10 nights, whether odd or even, more likely on the odd nights, and some mention that more likely on the 27th or the 29th. The safest is to exert yourself in the last 10 days fully. So we spoke about forgiveness. Yes, a person makes istighfar, does other good deeds, and bi'idhnillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives him. When it comes to increasing in good deeds and a person raising his rank, again, there are many acts of worship that a person can carry out. The first and most important is the Quran during the month of Ramadan. And this we're speaking about voluntary acts of worship. What is compulsory upon you should be in order in Ramadan or out of Ramadan. We all know that the Quran, its revelation began on Laylatul Qadr. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam and Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam would go over the Quran during the month of Ramadan, the full Quran, at least once. And in the last year, where the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, before he passed away, they went over it twice. Some of the scholars mention that this shows us, this is a sign that a person during the month of Ramadan should try his best to go over the full Quran. Yes, recitation, if a person is able to recite, that is the best. Recite and ponder. If you're unable, mashallah, all the masajid here, they generally have Quran Taraweeh where you go through it fully. You're still unable, listen to the Quran at home and make an effort to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. And that's generally the Quran, and pondering over it, reciting it, is an act of worship between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second act of worship a person is encouraged to carry out, especially during the month of Ramadan and the last 10 nights, is to give charity. And firstly is your compulsory zakah. If you're a person who gives zakah during the month of Ramadan, make sure you've already given your zakah. And as well as voluntary charity. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam was the most generous of people, and his generosity was most seen in the month of Ramadan. The last point I'd like to end off with is, it is the school holidays. With the school holidays, yes, everybody, their children are at home, etc. There is a fine line. Encourage your children, bring your children to the masjid, but understand that it comes with a responsibility. Because at times you find that there are those who've come from a long day at work, and they do not want to be disturbed when it comes to their ibadah. So again, there's a fine line and there's responsibility. We're not saying that don't come completely. Encourage them to come. They can see the iftar, they can perform some raka'at of taraweeh. But at the end of the day, understand that you as an adult are in charge. You are responsible for those who are under you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, everybody will be asked about their ra'iyah, those who are under them, and that includes firstly your family. So if your child, for example, came to the masjid and caused a whole lot of commotion, and it's something that's unavoidable, it happens, it's your responsibility to take charge and either take them out of the masjid, take them to a place where you are not disturbing everybody else. So please, it's important for us to maintain that balance. Those who say, we're not saying don't come completely, but we're saying come and be responsible. With those few words, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us goodness and beneficial knowledge, and make us from those who witness the month of Ramadan, who witness the last 10 days, who are forgiven and who are entered into the highest parts of Jannah. Ameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.